to the fetus. Okay, so you already had this question I raised about the Makot. Give me 1 second, Doug. We just had plays on 3 different questions already. Okay, question 1, are the Makot happening to the Egyptians and the Jews as well? So we saw the Ibn Rav Blau debate. Question 2, how does the warning pattern work? Is it just a 2-to-1 sequence, as the Rav Blau would have it? Or is it, no, the Makot that are life-threatening get a warning? That's how the Ramban would have it. That'd be another clue. Question 3, how should we conceive of this right now? Are they just frogs, just this nuisance? Or are they life-threatening, which also touches on what the word nagaf means. As Rashi would have, nagaf is a non-death connotation. The Rabbi doesn't know what he's talking about. Nagaf is a death connotation. If it's crocodiles and not frogs. Go.
It specifically says nakfu isha hara.
Ah, very good. Excellent. Doug's defending Rashi very well. What Doug wants to claim, it's true there's a death in the pasuk, but the recipient of the nigifa is the woman. That's exactly what Rashi would say. Rashi would say, no, but the woman's getting a nagaf happen to her, and she doesn't die. So I still would like to argue that therefore nagaf here does not connote that. I guess the Bible would have to say, even though the person receiving the nagaf is the woman, since it's an act that has death implications, we can still use that verb. You're right though, but I think Rashi would have a reasonable defense of his position. Okay, we'll go to that somewhere? Okay, now we get to the main part. Okay, we're going to work through the Sforno's theory of the Makot, and I think it touched on other issues of the Sforno in general. The Sforno was an interesting fellow. He was a Rav in Italy in the 1400s and 1500s, and he had some interesting interaction with non-Jews. In fact, there was a non-Jew named Rochlin, who actually was a famous Hasidic Ummah Olam, because he defended the Talmud from being burnt. And I think, if I remember correctly, Sforno taught him Hebrew or taught him Kabbalah or something like that. There was some kind of interaction between them. So he has a certain humanistic streak about the worthwhileness of all of humanity. So this friend has developed an interesting theory about the Makot, and we'll see how it plays to his general rule. So let's start with this one. So first, let's go to the sneh. I'm going to go back to the sneh here. What happens in the sneh, of course? Moshe sees this bush that's being burned by fire but not being consumed. Now, one obvious question is, what's the symbols of that? What's the symbols, the symbolic message of the bush burning and not being consumed? So what's the most obvious way to go? What would you say?
I think it's a symbol for the Jewish people.
Okay, that's the most obvious way, but that's, I think, the simple shot. Am Yisrael is being in difficulty. They're having trouble, they're in servitude, but they survive.
They're eternal.
But they're eternal, right? That'd be, again, nothing wrong with classic imagery, that's probably the simple shot. Let's look at this front. Okay, bottom source. Klomar. אף פי שראיתי את עמי אשר במצרים, כמו שראיתי את המלך בתוך הסנה, ואף פי שלצרי משיב ידי, כשמו בראש הסנה, מכל מקום, לא יסופו המצרים הצרים אותם בכל מקום ששלח אותם. I'm not going to, yasufu is like to be perished, to die. Right, so what does he claim? I'm not going to annihilate. I'm going to punish the Egyptians, but I'm not going to annihilate them. Now it's amazing. What does he claim? It's actually the lack of being consumed is actually imagery for Egyptians. And I'm sure they'll be punished. They'll be burned. They deserve it. But I'm not trying to kill them at this point. Going to the second page now. What is my claim? It's not the goal of Makot per se to destroy it. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to throw in one more thing now. Now he's going to bring other support, and he's going to make a distinction. Right? Before you attack the position, you should realize the position is a little more complex, a little more subtle. Okay, there's only one Makkah that is referred to. Okay, prior to Rav Blau, when he started?
During, whenever you finish.
Okay. Okay. All right. We left your board intact. A little too good for that race. Especially when you hit like 10. That's a lot of categories there.
It's all the sugi.
I see. Okay. Great. Okay. So there's one Makkah that's referred to before Moshe even goes back to Egypt. Remember what it says? There's one Makkah that's referred to way back when in Perigdal. Oh, very good. You said that. Lady, you know Chumash tomorrow. We're going to kick you out of Shir. Get out, lady.
It's
okay.
$20 chafala, something like that.
Okay, so Perigdal, right? Pasuk Chav Gimel. It's kind of amazing because God says it to Moshe right before Moshe's son is in danger. Right? You know that mysterious story at the inn? What does God say? Where is it? V'omer elecha shalach et b'ni v'abdeni v'timein l'shalcho hinei anochi horeg et bincha b'chorecha. That's something Moshe is supposed to tell to Paro. That's quite clearly not accidental, right? What happens right after that? Right after Moshe is supposed to tell Paro, hinei anochi horeg et bincha. The next thing is the story of the Malon, where apparently Moshe is in danger having to do with his son, right? You guys aware of this? Right. So that actually be an argument that I shouldn't get too caught in this tangent, but it might be an argument who's in danger. You guys are doing this story? Right? Who's in danger in that story of being killed? Is it Moshe or the child? You ever learn that? The very next pasuk says, if you want to see it's Dal Chadal. Vahi by Derech Ba Malon, they're in an inn on the way. By Kisheu Hashem, by Vakesh Hamito. God wanted to kill him. Who's him? Right, so many Mepharshim say it's Moshe. Some of the Mepharshim say it's the child. What's one of their arguments? We're supposed to carry over the previous pasuk, which was okay, let's leave that aside for now. But maybe that already tells you that Makat Bechorot is a different category than the rest of Makot. It's the only one that's mentioned at the get-go. So look at the next one here. Very interesting piece here. What's going on here? Why is this class of Midah Kedeg Midah? Well, the Egyptians wanted to kill the Jewish boys, so now their Bechor gets killed. Now clearly he's in the Makat Bechor is a Onish, right? That's Midah Kedeg Midah. Okay. Ki Orach Yishim said, Bilki says now, very interesting theory. Ki Amna Makat Bechor Levada Haytel Mishpat Onish L'Kar Mikol Makot. Aval Shar Makot Hayu L'Od U'L'Mofei L'Man Yashuvu. Amazing. What's this furnace theory?
Only Makat Bechor.
What was the purpose of the other 9?
Just to see if he would
do tshuva. Now, if you ask a basic question, we'll get to in 1 second. This friend's going to deal with that. He claims that other 9 Makot were that the Jews and the Egyptians should realize that God is the world and they should do tshuva. And the Egyptians should do tshuva. The 10th Makah is the first one that is a flat-out punishment. Which would also fit in nicely if we claim that the first 9, we've seen a whole debate, how life thing were they. Maybe this Friday would actually argue, none of the first 9 led to direct death of the Egyptians. Obviously, it hurts your economy in a very serious way. Makat Bechorot, obviously, that's a real punishment. Very interesting theory. So Sfar would say 9 are warnings, 9 are trying to inspire you to realize the truth about the world. The 10th is a punishment. That would also explain why the 10th is set aside. It's the only Makat that's mentioned in Shemot, picked up. It's really part of a different structure than the other 9. Okay, now questions.
So according to Sfar, not a single Egyptian died?
Look, I don't think it's that far.
During the 9,
I don't think it's that far, but
I think it's like direct or indirect.
right, exactly. Because obviously, if your economy collapses, I think Daniel's right. Ultimately, maybe someone dies because your economy.
I'm saying there wasn't one person that, a piece of hail hit him on the head.
Okay, I mean, why is it so impossible to?
I don't know.
He could argue that. I think he could argue that. Look, obviously, your economy collapsing has long-term implications. I agree with Daniel. But look, I was giving Menachem Liebtag a trip because I was Menachem Liebtag.
Yeah.
So I asked him this question. He said he was with this runner. He says the Pesukim do not mention the death of human beings. I mean, it talks about cattle dying, it talks about crops dying, but there's no explicit reference to human being dying till Makat Bechorot. Again, it's not a proof for this runner, but maybe it's supportive. Yeah, Avery.
This could work well with other question also, being that why did the first 3 Makot not have warnings? Well, because the Jews did tshuva after.
Oh, yeah, fair. Very interesting. I think maybe they woke up earlier than the Egyptians did. Okay, very good, Avery.
Then they no longer had
Very
to
good.
be tested.
Okay, yeah, Jacob Wynn.
So the Sforno kind of contradicts himself.
Why?
He said, in Parak Dal, he says that the Makat Bechorot is already a foregone conclusion. We're already talking about it. But the other 9 are about tshuva, but there's no reason to give him. But the tshuva
That's interesting.
already proceeds the implication of the punishment.
That's interesting why it's mentioned earlier. I mean, it gets the tough question about prophetic predictions about people doing the wrong thing. You do that sometimes, right?
Yeah, he's looking.
I'm saying it's not, your question is a good question, it's not unique to this problem. It's a famous question. Also, say, Bim Tarim, if God says the Jews are going to be in servitude, so the Egyptians still have a choice at that point.
Yeah.
Right, so your question is a good question, but it could be this friend just would deal with how he deals with those other parallel cases. Yeah.
I think logically it would make sense that the only plague where Egyptians died was the 10th because that was the entire plague. There wasn't anything else.
Okay, very good. Meaning because Daniel's direct indirect point. Okay? Now, some of you could ask, give me a basic question. If God really wants to give the Egyptians a chance to do tshuva, why does he? Harden Par's heart. Isn't that a basic question? But I think, I never realized until this year, I think all these furnaces go together. Because there's a famous question like, why is God harden Par's heart? Why would we have free choice? This is a huge split. The Rambam thing, so another Rambam? The Rambam, really? You don't have freedom forever. You could lose it. You're bad long enough, God could. So the Rambam thinks God took away his freedom. That's it. Yes,
Flips it.
Very good. Look at this Sforno. Next piece, guys. And it fits this Sforno beautifully. Ain't safek shaluli hachbar alei promise shalech yisrael safek. If God doesn't harden his heart, He's going to send them out. But how did He send them out? Lo outside tshuva v'achmal kivrach. Had power to send them out, what would have been? It would not have been an act of repentance. She nachem yomorei that he regrets being a rebellious fellow. Api shekir galuto. El atzayeto bilti yachol lisbol odet tzvad makot. If power to send them out, what would have been? What's built yachol lisbolod?
Doesn't want any more.
Maybe exactly. Let's say like you start hitting me till I give you my my chumash, and I finally give it to you. Right? So that's not free choice. I'm not choosing you, my gosh. It's like stop hitting me. Right? That's what's going on. So he would then that would not be a free choice. Right? If Par had sent them out under the pressure, the cumulative pressure of the makot, that would be an act of tshuva. Right? Kamoshi gidu avadav bar matem tegem mitzvah. We said the fourth line. V'zo lo hayta tshuva klal. Par really wanted to be do tshuva. What's the claim? Is that fascinating? If Par had any authentic tshuva impulses, God would not have held him back. Right? It's only to say stop hitting me. That's not a tshuva. That's not tshuva. Not only that, she yitametz lispol hamakot. Very interesting phraseology. What does he say? What's God doing? Yitametz, he is strengthening, right? Chazak ve'matz. Lispomate, he's basically in some ways putting his front out. He's right, it's reversal. God is almost restoring his freedom more than he is canceling his freedom. What's God doing? The average human being wouldn't be able to handle the pressure anymore. God is strengthening his stubbornness and his wherewithal to be able to withstand the pressures. He's back in equilibrium. Now Par could once again now evenly decide whether he should send out Am Yisrael or not. So I think all these fronts go together beautifully. The Sfaradim would like to argue the 9 makot are these tshuva-inducing people should realize the truth about the world. The Egyptian society should realize the truth about God. That indeed is a flat-out punishment. That's the midah kedeg midah for the evil the Egyptians did. And what about the fact that God takes away their freedom? So not surprisingly, this verse, that's not what's going on. Harding Parshat is actually restoring his freedom. God is taking away this false kind of tshuva. But the possibility for authentic tshuva was always there. Yeah.
I feel like, according to this Sforno, there was no point of the play. I feel like he is contradicting.
Why?
Because if the plagues are supposed to induce the tshuva, then it would be counterproductive for God to harden his heart so that the plagues don't.
That's interesting. So Doug, I think, very good question, Doug. I think this Sforno would have to work out a theory that the plagues could be educational, not only in the stop hitting me kind of way. Like someone could somehow get a message that, there's a God who runs the world, he cares about justice, right? That I guess you could say the same thing, right? We hope in life sometimes when I know when we're all parents, and please God, you always be wonderful parents with it, have kids, enjoy it. Right? Occasionally you punish them, right? So you'd like the punishment to somehow have, not so easy to carry this off, right? But have an educational purpose also. Like the reason why it's bad, I punish you for hitting your brother is because it is a bad thing to do to hit your brother, right? And not just you'll stop so that you don't get punished next time. Right, so you're right, Doug. Like you have to look at exactly how that works, but I think this writer would say that the makot could function on two levels. There's just like the Egyptians saying, "Stop hitting me," and that's not tshuva. But some makot that somehow could internalize ideas about God and the universe, and that could have happened, but didn't. Yeah.
Maybe in support of Doug or in support of Sforno's claim, you could say that the symbolism of the makot, like the midah keneged midah, like you said before about the Nile turning red or turning into blood, and that's how that parallels the Jewish babies.
Right.
So you could say it like that the symbolism of the makot and the midah keneged midah is that educational purpose.
Right. Although you're saying it almost seems like there's two kinds of midah keneged midah. There's midah keneged midah in terms of you're supposed to get a symbolic message, and there's midah keneged midah is almost well you did A, so you deserve a poetic justice, right? The two go together, they're not contradictory, but I think both could be happening, right? Yeah, Damon?
And I also kind of see it as when we say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, is that the people, I don't see this Hashem made Paro as the leader's heart, but the people still had their own very much free will to do whatever they wanted to do.
This is fascinating.
So the people themselves, and that maybe that God hardened, his heart, and the idea that so you withstand it to make that ultimate free will, but he also sees his own people suffering.
Okay, I want to say two things about that. Are you guys going to Marshall today? Or not? So you don't have to be free by, okay, back over 10 minutes? You're okay? Okay, so I say something very interesting what you just said, Daniel. It's an interesting question in general, which touches even modern political questions. When the society does something, is it always top down? Is it always the leaders are deciding everyone's just going along because they're scared or whatever? Or is the society responsible? Obviously, it comes very much in the Holocaust, right? Is it just the Nazi leadership, or every German individual is? So it's very interesting. I think there are a couple of illustrations in Chumash where you see that the whole people are involved in it also. But I always make this point, even tyrants are not going to get up and say, we're going to do this, and I don't care what you guys say because I'm a tyrant. right? They tend to somehow need to convince and use propaganda to get in the way, because it's not so easy. The whole people are to be resistant and can get in the way. So even with Paro, it's a very interesting Ramban. Paro doesn't get up one day and say, we're just going to kill all the Jews. It's much more subtle. What are the stages? Right, stage one is...
We're all gonna work together.
Right, exactly. Taxes. Ramban is a great Ramban in the first paragraph. That's not unheard of. You tax a certain population. Right? So no one can say maybe I don't do anything. The Ramban, even what's the claim is, even after the taxes or the work, what's the next stage? He claims that when the midwives are killing the babies, thanks to Ramban, that was not meant to be publicly known. Because think about it, a lot of people in the ancient world died in childbirth, right? A lot of stillborns. What was going to according to Ramban, it was going to be this subtle thing. Like, there would be there's no public proclamation. We're just killing the Jews. Right? No, it'll all be subtle. And Ramban even says explicitly because you just can't get up and do that. Like a party got up and said we're just killing all the Jews, maybe some of the Egyptians would have protested. But if you do things more subtly, then people start to go along. But then and then when he says, Ramban even claims, even in the third stage, what's the third stage? Everybody's told to throw the babies in the Nile. Ramban claims it still would have been like a false veneer that society's still just. And what would have happened? A Jew would have come to court and say, this Egyptian killed my baby, and the Egyptian judge would say, okay, we'll punish him, bring witnesses. And then it still would have played out as if some real judicial system is actually functioning, right? And the claim would be like, again, because you need the people to go along. And even one more thing, guys, what does Paro say at one point? I don't remember after which Makkah, I think after like 7 or 8. Aniv Ami Harashim. You guys remember that phrase? At one point he says that? I thought it's Tzaddik, right? Isn't that like, no, if there's 7 or 8 Makkah, is there a good anybody? Where's Aniv Ami Harashim? Where is it? Let's find that. I think after the 7th or 8th Makkah. Just find it. Levi, what do you say? Where's that? Nope. Give me one more second. Any suggestions, Doug? Give me one more second. I can't find it now. I'll do it. It's definitely there. I know I'm not finding it in a second. Here it is. Okay, Perek 10, Pasuk Chavav. Vayishlach ba v'kol Moshe l'Arav Yom Aleim chatat yafam Hashem HaTzadik v'ani v'ami harasheim. So you look at the Meshech Chachma there. He says it's not just Paro like spreading out the blame. It's really true. Like a society is never just the decision of its tyrant and dictator. There's always some kind of communal influence on what's happening, and the Egyptians are really partially responsible as well. Okay, Mark, what are you going to say?
Also, in the first part of the Parsha of Bo, doesn't it say that Hashem hardened the Paro's heart and the people's heart?
Let's see. Is that correct? Yes, Ani Ichbad Libo and Lev Avadav. Oh, it is. You could say Lev Avadav is a more restricted group of Egyptians.
Why?
Well,
Because it
Avadav, right?
differentiates
Who's
from
Avadav?
It's a certain amount of people, like not just like.
It could be just advisors, right? But you're right. At least it's beyond power.
It's not. Yeah.
No, but again, this Sfarad would plug in the same theory, right? This Sfarad would plug in the same theory. That the hardening of the heart is not a removal of freedom, but actually a.
But here it says kabed, doesn't say chazak.
You think Ichbadi is different than Akshay?
Remember, David Foreman points out the difference.
Okay.
Actually, this pasuk I have a question because Rabbi David Foreman's whole theory is like where it says kabed, Paro is doing it to himself usually, and if it says chazak, Hashem's encouraging Paro to giving him a cheer, go on.
Right.
But this pasuk actually goes against Rabbi David Foreman's theory because it says kabed,
Right.
and Hashem's doing it.
Right.
That's why I have a question on it. So.
Okay.
But
All right, guys. Any other comments? Okay, last two Sfardos. Okay. Should we sneak in the last two or just one? What do you guys want? What? Both? Okay, so this is really cool. Okay, at one point in one of the Makot, God says, bring in the mikneh. Remember, at one point they're given a warning? This also, by the way, seems to show that there is a warning to Egyptians. Because what do you have here? Those who are God-fearers should bring the mikneh in. Those who aren't, okay, leave your mikneh out and... Look at this part, it says what's doing there. It's very interesting. What's his claim? It wasn't actually to save the mikneh, it was actually to save the servants. Because what's the claim? The Egyptians would say to their servants, and maybe they're not just servants, maybe there are others from other peoples, or maybe an Egyptian lower class. Oh, we're going to go inside because the Barad's coming, but you guys stay outside with the animals. But since God tells us to bring the animals, what's going to happen by default? Well, they bring the animals, that's also going to lead to bringing in the servants who are with the animals. Why? Kamram. See, this is an important idea for Sfarna. The Torah cares about humanity. And according to the Sfarna, even this little warning, bring the mikneh in, was to make sure that the avadim or with the mikneh should not be in danger due to the makkah. Okay, last example of this in this one. Okay, let's go to Matan Torah. What does God say with Am Yisrael Matan Torah? Heyitim li skula mikol amin. So clearly what do we have? We have some kind of special status. We have a treasury among the nations. What's this furnace comment? Af al pi shekol hamin enoshi yakar etzli. What does that mean? Kol min enoshi yakar etzli.
All of humanity.
All human species is precious to me. Mikol yeter anim tzimashvil. From all the other lowly creatures. Ki hu levado amuchvan bem. Kamam zal. Here's his quote once again. Chav and vadam shniver b'tzel. Beloved is man created in image of God. Mikol makom atem tiyu liskula mikula. But nevertheless, you will be some kind of special role to play. So here, even in a pasuk emphasizing Jewish distinctiveness, right? Atem tiyu liskula mikol amim. He from liskula mikol amim. This front feels need to emphasize. It's not to the degradation of humanity. There's a special status here. So I think we have a couple things to review this year. Okay, let's just go through all the issues. Number one, why does the Torah only tell me in Makkah 4 that God is differentiating Jews and Egyptians? If we ask the Rashbam, what do you say? That's the first time that something very migrant, and therefore it's the first time it was necessary. But of course, all the Makkah are only for the Egyptians. What would the Ibn Ezra say? First 3 Makkot happened to the Jews also. What's the Ibn Ezra's justification of that? Ma'at Haziko. He would claim, Dam, Tzvardei, Kinim are not too dangerous. They're just irritating. Okay, next. Why the warnings play out the way they do? Most people would say it's a pattern. 2 warnings, 1 no. 2 warnings, 1 no. What did Ramban say? No, the warnings are reflective of what's life-threatening. So clearly the Ramban would be a different team. What would the Ramban say? 6 of them are life-threatening, 3 are not. Of course, what was the most difficult for Ramban? Tzvardei gets a warning. It sounds like Tzvardei is life-threatening. So we saw Rashi Barbanel debate. What does it mean, the verb nigaf? Rashi claims nigaf as a verb is not mita. A Barbanel claims nigaf as a verb is mita. So it's nigaf tzvardei, that would be perhaps it would depend on that. The Barbanel also shifted everything. Both the radical Barbanel, tzvardei are not frogs, they're crocodiles. Much more dangerous than frogs. So you see how all these issues tie together. Probably have these foreigners very unusual theories.